think we haven't had Western music in our schools for quite a long time, at least in Bombay. And I think that the young people had forgotten. Whereas my parents grew up with a lot of music. They sang in choirs, they sang solo, there was a lot of music in the family. Voices develop if you use them. And that's all it needs, really. The more you sing, the more your voice grows. But I find in the last few years, I've heard some of the choirs in Bombay, and I've not been that impressed. They don't sing in tune, they don't have the range, and that's what I wanted to bring. I wanted to bring back to India the knowledge, and I wanted to teach so that I can teach. I want to teach teachers as well as students, so that we Indians, and I think we Indians have great. We have a great love of music, but we also have great voices, natural voices that only need to be shown how to sing well. And I've been so impressed by how quickly people have developed. I mean, I took Joanne DeMello from Goa. You know, I observed her for 4 years. I used to come once a year to Goa and always find a way to give her a few lessons. We'd record the lessons, and I'd say, and her teacher was there with her, so I'd say, you know, work like this, do that. And after 4 years, she'd finished her university studies, and I'd observed her to see, is she serious enough? Is she going to work hard? Is she committed? And I knew she had a passion for singing. So I felt I could take a risk with her. And I guaranteed for her what my teacher had done for me, I did for Joanne. I bullied the head of singing, because she sent a tape. In fact, I think that you must have been conducting her in that tape. Yeah, it was in the Month Festival. So we gave them the tape, and he said to me, I need to see her and hear her in person. And I knew he would be very strict if she came to London. So I said, you know, can't you take my word? Because the previous head of singing had said to me, there'd just been a change, you know, that year. And the previous said, Patricia, if you want her, we'll have her. Then the new guy came in, and he said, I want to hear her in person. And I said, no. We had this exchange of emails, which was a bit, I was flexing my muscles, and in the end I said, you know, I'm afraid her parents can only afford to send her once, and that would be to start the course. And on that basis, he accepted my word, and she came, and actually she proved to be an excellent student. He was, within a year, I said to him, I'll get her up to scratch within a year. She worked very hard, just as I had done, and she was, you know, one of the best students that year.
I have a story about Joanne. At the Kala Academy, they had a group of children playing the violin in a small string group, and I was conducting it for lack of anything else to do. And Joanna would be sitting in the back of the second violin section, just using 2 inches of bow, very quiet, very timid. And then one day we had a concert, and she wanted to sing the Habanera from Carmen. And she was transformed.
Yeah.
She was on a presence on stage. She had the audience in the palm of her hand, and I thought, wow, there's some quality there that is coming out with the voice that was not coming out when she was being behind everybody else. So we have potential, really, that has to be discovered and
absolutely. Yeah. But I do say to them all that, you know, it's hard work, but it's rewarding in the end.
I'm going to check the time only because we run the schedule. We have a little bit left. The way I saw you teaching today reminded me of something that happened after World War II. We had many prisoners of war here. Some were Germans. The Germans were kept behind barbed wire. The Italians were allowed to roam, come and go. They used to come from Pune to my house, bringing fish for my mother. 4 hours in the train with fish. Anyway, the Italian government then sent a soprano who had been very famous in her day. When she was 16 years old, she sang duets with Battistini that have been recorded. Janina De Witt, and a retired maestro from La Scala in Milan. And they started a Casa de Arte in Bombay, which naturally I joined, having nothing else to do, and many of us. And she used to talk of the color of the voice, the voce curva, which you close your mouth a certain way, you round, and the tone becomes very different. You can make it sad, and if you open your mouth, if you smile, you get a happy sound. And you were saying exactly the same thing to your people today. And what a difference it made when they listened to you.
You heard it.
I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard it immediately.
actually, it's interesting. About 7 years ago, I decided, I should try and start teaching because the voice is a muscle, and as you get older, all your muscles get weaker, so you can't sing forever. And I just thought, as a fallback, I should start teaching, because when I was singing, I didn't do any teaching. I just had to focus on my family and my singing. And I also believe that you have to hear many voices. You have to live your life hearing a whole range of voices, and then you will know how to teach well. Because everybody is unique, and you've got to be able to assess what someone needs, not just general ideas. So I applied to the Guildhall, and I knew the head of singing because he was my teacher, one of my French song teacher, and he gave me a shock because he said, well, Patricia, if you want to teach, you've got to bring a student and teach a student, and we'll give you a student and you have to teach that student, and then we'll quiz you on it. And I thought, I'm done with exams, I don't want to be tested. So I turned my back on the Guildhall. And then there was a young student who I met on a summer course who was just plaguing my life. I want to study with you, I want to study with you. I said, look, you're at the Royal College, I don't teach there. So eventually I rang the head of singing at the Royal College, and he said, look, you cannot teach her unless you're one of us. But if you want to come on board, we'd welcome you. And so a little earlier than I would have thought of teaching, I decided to join up. And I started with one, and then a term later they gave me 2 more, and before I knew it, the first year was difficult because they're all at quite a good level, the students, and so you've got to find a way of taking them further and developing the good talent that you have. But after a year, I found it was, I really was thriving on my teaching because I felt I could connect with each student and find out what it was they needed. And basically the technique is the same, but we actually get in the way of our singing. That's generally the problem. You see how babies and kids, when they scream, there's nothing holding them back, and the resonance comes piercing through. But as we grow older, we feel inhibited, and we worry about what people might say about our voices, and so we start to hold ourselves back and cover up the voice. So learning how to sing is just releasing ourselves from these inhibitions, but also it involves learning how to strengthen the muscles and using your full body. Now I just had, at the moment, a girl come from Bangalore to study. She has a lovely voice, but I was intrigued to find, she said she only used half her body, from up to her waist, as it were, focusing on the diaphragm entirely, and I could hear there was a certain tension at times, a certain unevenness in the tone, and I explained to her how to use the whole body, all the muscles in the body, and you have to learn how to use it in proportion to what you're singing, and it makes singing so much easier. It makes the tone more even and beautiful, and it takes you forward. So I'm loving the teaching. People say to me, you must be exhausted, and I say, no, I'm exhilarated. I just want, there's a great joy, yeah.
I would ask you to dwell a little bit on this breathing business, the diaphragmatic breathing. But I'll tell a little story about Yanina in a bit, because she explained to us that in order to breathe, we have got to expand the chest cavity. And one way of doing this, she said, is to use the diaphragm to let more air come in. And immediately, some of us began to push our stomachs out. And she ran around saying,